go ahead and recording.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is kind of take you through how I train people when they show up for an event.
Okay.
So, usually I'm going to share my screen as well. So let me know if you can share my screen and see that I'm actually on the Discover Freedmen website.
Yes. I see.
Okay.
Oh, that's graphic. Is that the same guy, or did y'all do some research and find somebody who looked like the current guy?
It is. The one image of the current guy is stock photography.
Yes.
And the other one is just an older photo we found from the Library of Congress.
That's interesting. That could be him or his ancestor or. Anyway.
Absolutely, I love that. So it's just our graphic designer. I had him praying about it. I had him, doing all kinds of things to make sure we found the right images that match, and he found it. I mean, that you couldn't get no better than this, really. And you have that also with the women on the page, and you got these two guys that look like they could be, related and stuff like that. So, what we do when I, first thing I do whenever I start is I always show the video. I just want people to get an idea of what the project's like. And so this video that's on discoverfreedmen.org, I let them know the website, discoverfreedmen.org. I usually spell it out loud. A lot of times I'll write it on the board or have it part of the PowerPoint. And I'll play the 5-minute video. And then I'll show them how to the volunteer now. And so it just depends on the group that I'm dealing with. They've never indexed before. The things that they have to do, obviously, is they have to, if they're on their own computer, they need to download the program on their computer, and they have to create a FamilySearch account. What I'll do is I'll show them the Volunteer Now page, which on that Volunteer Now page, it has, I don't know if you hear recently or at all really have used this, but here's this getting started video. It is super fast on purpose, but it's just supposed to tell people kind of the steps that it takes, which, for example, is, install the indexing program. Yeah. And it gives them the link to where they can go to install the program. So this page, and you click download, and you can install the program. And then install the program, actually coming back here, and once you open it up, for example, here it is on my screen. I have them go click to register for a new account from the actual indexing program. And I have them to only do it, they only have to do this once. They don't have to do this every time they want to do it. But take the process. Get people to do this in advance. Try to have them do this in advance.
We're going to do that in our. Is it okay if I talk back to?
Absolutely. Yes. This is a conversation. Even though we're being recorded, other people listen. It's good for us to chat back and forth. So perfect.
Yeah, I'm going to do that in our promotion Index-A-Thon. We even say where to go and do it. I say if they don't have internet, we'll do when they get there. But go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. So to get them to that point, as you know and have probably experienced, these can be the thing that sucks the energy out of any kind of event, is when they try and create a new user or they try and download the program and it doesn't work for them, right? So obviously if we can do this well in advance, that's great. If not, still get people in. I have a couple of different indexing accounts, so I got to open my indexing program again. Use a couple of different accounts, so I'll let people borrow my account if they really get stuck, but they want to be able to do it and try it at home. And I try and get their information so I can follow with them and make sure they got it. Once at home, they got their stuff squared away and they're able to get in there themselves. That's the thing I do. So, so now I'm going to go ahead and log in, and I'll show you kind of how I go to do. The first thing I do before I train, I actually go ahead and download either 3 or 4 batches like this. And the reason I do it is because of 2 reasons. One, is because if for whatever reason I don't have internet access, I can still work offline. If you're aware of that, but you can work offline and online. So I had it one time, actually just last month, no, last, I can't remember what night it was, last Tuesday, we lost internet access in the building.
Oh.
But I still was able to show everybody everything because I downloaded the batches ahead of time, and it worked offline and do the work, right? So I always do that. I always have 3 or 4. That way I don't have any problems, of downloading batches, things like that. And the reason I do it is because I have one batch that I'm going to demo with. I have a batch that I'm going to show them what happens at the quality check and submission phase. And that I want to show them how to return a batch. And sometimes I'll have, if it's easy to find one, I have a 4th batch that has a non-extractable data image in it. Things that people run into the most, right? So they want to see what to do with the field. So that's the one where I show them what to put in the fields and stuff like that. But a lot of times you can't demonstrate and get to a completed batch to show people how to submit a batch once they're done. So I always work on a batch ahead of time, and at the 100% completion, if you can see there,
yes.
I can just show them how to submit it. And I treat the batch that I'm demoing with the batch that I'm going to submit. In this case tonight, I didn't do that because I forgot to get much that I needed to submit, and I didn't have enough time before this. But no, like if I'm doing a labor contract for a demo, I'll also have a labor contract that's ready to submit.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times I'll keep batches in here. You see how these ones are red as the due date's coming up?
Yeah.
I always do that. Like I always have a batch that's red, just because I want people to notice when it turns red and the due dates and things like that, right? So I always have one. And that's the one I'll typically return and how to return the batch, right?
Yes.
So here's kind of the, obviously I'll show them how to download a batch. So this will be actually, this one I'll download when I download it, probably the one that'll sit and turn red for next demo, because I'm not going to do anything with this. I've already got some set up. So let me go ahead and I just show them how to get to it. My screen, I've maximized it, but a lot of times you'll see the screen be like this small, and you go to download a batch, and it'll show preferred projects. And so I've had a lot of people been recently opening up these U.S. Pennsylvania marriage records and also the 1860 census rework. So make sure they know to click Show All Projects and scroll down below Pennsylvania and Puerto Rico, Tennessee, and get to these Freedmen Bureau records, right?
Yes.
And so there's these 4. We have 4 on here, actually. Let me go up one more. And on up labor contracts.
Yes.
That is your favorite? It's very interesting as you read these labor contracts, right? So now I've showed them how to open it, but a lot of times if I open one, it'll be like this. That's a little work to kind of emphasize and read through and make sure you're catching it. So I say it's I'm showing you how to download the batch, and I'll just return it now. Let me open up a batch that I've actually worked on before. So now I can go up here. That was the one on top. I think this is the one I had earlier. And then, wow. No, that was my phone thinking I was speaking to it, some voice directions. I don't think anybody's on. Sorry for y'all that are watching the recording. You're probably cracking up now. But it's the one where I do, where I'm going to show them and take them through it. It hasn't been done at all. The thing always, just show them the different areas. Obviously, here's where the image is, and you can move the image around. Here's where we'll put the data in, and here's where the field helps. And then I stop, and I always click this one. I wish they would put project instructions in front of field help, but they didn't. So I just click on project instructions, and the first thing I tell anybody who's a new indexer is, your teacher told you, and at home your mama told you, read the instructions before you start the work. So, read the instructions before you start the work. You come in here, and half the time, this is what happens. I watched it. You probably watched it as well. People open this up, and they'll say, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to type? And I said, well, slow down. You got to read the instructions to know that. You know, it's not intuitive, right? That's why we provided these instructions. And click here, and it'll take you outside of the indexing program to this indexing guide we created specifically for Freedmen's Bureau records. So if you get stuck, if you're having a hard time, what I'm going to teach you is the same thing that's on this right here, and here are all these instructions, right?
Yes.
So if you print this out, you go ahead and print this out. And then I go back to and say, okay, so now we are labor contracts. Take a look at some sample images and see what types of things, because this might not match. The contracts were not all uniform the same every single page. So you need to get an idea of what these are, and then some details on how to index a labor contract. So I tell them, read the project instructions first. The next two is look at all images. And a lot of times people don't recognize that there's 5 images in this batch, and they're all under the word images. So what I've them do is take a look at all these and realize that the page goes bigger than what you can see. So you got to scroll up and down and look at the next one. Just what are you seeing? What is about it? What's different on each one? You start to read through and look for information. Just go and go through all of them. So you have. And then that first one, and asking me to fill in this field right here for image type. And I go over and show them the field of help. So image type, this is what it means. And I read them the whole instructions for image type so they can understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
Read it out loud to them. And then the first thing I do for all my images is make sure they fit these image types, because that's the way they've done the system. It's kind of different, where you do the image type separately and then you start putting in the data. So we're going to go ahead and click normal. This is a normal image according to the definition. Again, this definition is a normal image. I click on the word required and click it to normal. Required, double click or click again, normal. Required, this looks like it. Again, it looks like it has names. It has some information on here. It's a good image. Now, you can always change that before you submit it, so it's not set in stone. And then personally, and you tell me this what you think, do you table entry or form entry?
Entry, and that's where a lot of people have been to explain things to. They get confused as to what that means. I say one is horizontal, one is vertical. I like horizontal. You might like filling things up vertical. I say they're the same thing. Just pick one and move on.
Yep. So I just wanted your opinion, because it's kind of potato and tomato kind of thing. But one thing I also point out is, before I get too far, you can see which progress you've made in this and where you're at. So the bottom says image 1 of 5. You know there's 5 images. Word 1 of 5. So each image by default says there'll probably be at least one name on this, but there'll be more. So that's why it says record 1 of 5, and I'll show them how it changes as you do more. And then the completion shows you that you're making progress with the fields that are required to fill out. That's how they are. Required field we're on right now is image type, and it shows it down at the bottom. So there's a lot of things at the bottom you can learn from, but I usually go to table entry because it shows me each image and one record or one name per image and the information. And in this case, there's only 5 fields that are required, meaning something must be put in this field in order for it to be accepted as a batch. That doesn't mean that the information has to be there. That means that something has to be in these fields. I'll explain to them a little bit more. So, for example, on this one, you have number 76. It's not for a number. This looks like a name to me. For me, I always go with my first guess. So I put M, and for me, I think it's M-A-D-S-E-N, M. Madsen. However, I cannot see on this document an actual contract day because I have to mark this field blank, and there's two ways to do it. If in the field like I am now and I can see my cursor moving, I can come up here to mark the field as blank. It looks like a diamond with an X. When I haven't clicked on it, I can also use the Control B button on the board. So they're not provided on this image, a contract month, date, and year. And it asks me, do I want to add, how many records do you want to add to this image? Meaning, are there more than one name? There more than one name on this record or on this image. If so, then I'll increase the number of lines there. If not, I'll just click OK where it says number of records 0. So that's how I do that first name. Now, many will dispute what they're seeing, and maybe they can't see it very well. So there's a couple of things you can do. One, let's look at ways you can increase the size. You can click here next to the 62%, increase the size to 75%, or drop down to 100%, or hit the plus minus to see the different size. And I will increase it here to 100%, pull it up. But I also see some background writing, which makes it maybe a little bit harder to decipher the letters. So two ways I can do. I can invert the image. So click on that. It actually turns the image black and makes the text white. That helps in some instances. In this case, it really didn't help me. Or I can adjust. Here's this, adjust the brightness and contrast. So if I up the brightness just a little bit, it washes out the back. If I turn the contrast, it makes the dark lines darker and the lines tend to fade away. I think I can see that a little bit better there. And to me now that maybe looks like an MH. Simply change it by putting H in there, right? One thing they'll notice, or I point out, is that you don't put periods. Because what? The field helps tell you how to fill out a given name. One tells you next the name of all employers, employees, and other freedmen. Do not index the names of commissioners or bureau administrators. If you don't know if someone's a commissioner or a bureau administrator, go ahead and add their name. But if it says bureau officer, administrator, commissioner, assistant commissioner, you do not have to put that name down there. Also, the given name, it gives you some different examples. The name written in this case, because we're in America, it's written before the surname. You type it as it's written. It's WM, you do not type William. If it's JOS, you don't type Joseph. You write it as it's written there. And you include the terms like Mr. or Junior. Name was abbreviated. You write it as written on the document. You don't put periods after the abbreviation. All this is in the field help, either given name. And there's also helps for surname or last names. Also contract day, contract month, contract year. Tell you exactly how to put it down. For contract month, you write the first 3 letters of the month the contract was made. And this could be, we don't have it on this sheet, but it'll probably be on another image that we look at. Sounding so far as I'm going through it. Is this like what you do?
As a matter of fact, there are some little tips in my group every now and then because in a year I say if you write in 1872, please don't mistake and write 1972 because we just got our 1900s and
yes.
Let's see what else. Also when you're writing a date and you're writing and it says April, you write May. No, I mean when you write May and it. I tend to stutter.
No, where it brings up March before it brings up May.
where I'm going with it. It calls it March, but if it's on the document, it says May. And you know this thing has autofill. Be careful of that. You type the extra letter Y to get the in there. Yes. Otherwise, it'll assume you March, unless the last thing you typed was May, and it's off to that, I think.
Well, it usually defaults to the first month that has those letters. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when you're writing June, if J-U-N, if you do July, U-L, it'll default to July actually first, because July is first alphabetically.
Oh, yeah.
You need to write June. And so you just got to pay attention to the contract months. Make sure you're putting in the full 3 letters to designate which month it is, because in March and May, it sometimes gets confused. In June and July, it sometimes gets confused as well with the autofill there.
That's true.
Okay. So I usually go and like I've scoped out, a lot of times I've scoped out these batches before, so I can demonstrate some additional things by looking at different images. For example, here, remember we had it at 100%, so it kept the picture at 100%, and it all kept my settings for brightness and contrast, so it seemed to work. But I'm actually skip this one because I'm going to show you how to add multiples. As you hear, you have multiple Freedmen and that are on here. Well, remember, this line only asked for 1 so far. So I'm going to go back and start giving names. And like I did before, Tim is the first one I see. And there is no surname. There's no last name, so I'll hit Control-B to make it blank. And fortunately on this page as well, there is no date. There is executed in the presence of and these people, but no date on this. So the date is going to be blank for this individual and all the individuals, and you have to put something in it. So Control-B, Control-B, Control-B. It's asking me now to add records to this image. Well, I'm seeing here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see at least 8. So I'm going to type in 8 new records to add, and I'm still in the third image, but I'm going to get record. And this, I think it's Charlotte, and I don't have an E on the end, so I'm going to keep it the way it is. I was actually hoping that would show up red. Because sometimes if you type in a name and the actual program actually records names, and so it knows if names are spelled properly or correctly. In case Charlotte with no E is probably an acceptable spelling, but sometimes you'll see spellings. You know, even if I made a mistake and play JHGA, you see it turned that one red. Yeah, it turned red because it doesn't recognize that spelling. That doesn't mean you've made a mistake. It only means that it doesn't recognize the spelling, and it will ask you to review that again. And you have to match it up and double check and make sure that that's the correct spelling. That's what happens when it turns red. In this case, after Charlotte is Emily, and it doesn't. And it's a shame that we don't record all this information, but it's okay because the person who's searching for this ancestor is going to be able to learn information about their age, about their gender, additional things they might have received. Most of them researchers are just looking for the name, the date, and the place. And once they get the image, then they can identify that that's their ancestor. So don't feel bad that we're not indexing the age here or the number of dependents they have. That will be on this image still once people are able to search for it. I kind of get to that point, and then that's enough for me. And if, for example, I'm going to add more lines to this, as I got down to the bottom, I only added 8. I go here and use the insert a record before the current row or record for this image at the end, and I do that. And if I made a mistake, oops, I can delete the selected record, and actually it by default deletes all the blank lines that I put in there, so I'll still need to add more lines. There's a couple that you want to know on the page. You know, one of the letters I was unfamiliar with, there's a little feather or quill in ink, and those examples of handwriting. So this gives you an idea of some of the different types of handwriting that existed before, how people wrote cursive, and gives you some kind of better guesses in some cases on what these letters are. So you can see the difference between a W and an H and N, and be able to decipher whether those letters are correct or not. And guess, I always tell people, don't get hung up so much on it. If you really have some issues and you do handwriting helps, there's, you can go to more tutorials and different things, learn more about how to read some of these writings. But just do your best, and if for whatever reason it doesn't work for you, we can always return the batch, or you can work on it at a different time. So here's where I'll just kind of go. Are there other features that you think, Will, that I should show people as demoing them indexing? What other features do you show that I haven't shown?
One I thought you were going to do, but looking at the names, I don't think you would have had a reason to use that. Since there's a name, people can read some of the letters. If you can claim the lookup, the little drop-down arrow inside there, as you can tell, that was tilde.
Let me go back. Which one? Mm-hmm.
Fourth name from the bottom. L-D-Y. Now, some people may not realize that's a name, may not see that as a D. And inside the field box, and the first letter, and you can't figure out the rest of the letters, there, if you click that down arrow, you get a lookup. It says lookup. Down thing box. Yours do it. Mine, when you click that little drop down arrow, there's a word that's up, and you click that lookup. There's a list of all the potential names, and put a few letters. If it starts with, ends with, contains, and it's all the letters in each category in this little lookup analysis box. It will eventually narrow down the names that fell based on what you're putting in there. I don't see it on yours.
I wonder, that's interesting, because that might not be a feature. So I'm on a Mac, just for those who are listening to the recording after the fact. I'm on a Mac, and so I wonder if that's different between a PC and Mac. I was not familiar with that feature at all. I know the thing I thought you were going to talk about is if I didn't understand the letters and didn't understand that was a D, I can put a question mark or a star right there as well. So, that's all I know. Actually, it's a question mark in this case, correct?
Yes. That
I don't know what the letter is there, but I know the other letters. And that is actually an acceptable form to put in there. Let individuals know while they're doing this as well, is that you're not the only one who looks at this. So don't worry about getting it wrong, because there's always another person who indexes the same exact record that you do, and there's also an arbitrator who looks at both of the results of the first indexer and the second indexer to determine if there's any discrepancies between those. And if there are discrepancies, then they're at liberty to kind of change it before it actually gets into the system and kind of finalized. And so it's okay.
Yeah. Not to cut you off when you mentioned arbitrators. That's so important with some of my indexers and sometimes with me, but I'm an arbitrator too. I don't do it too much because it takes a long time, longer than the index. And I guess you've heard the complaint about some indexers. I'm not indexers, arbitrators. Or like some indexers, they don't always read the project instructions, or they don't always.
Yes. Yes.
Arbitrators, the first thing they must do is match the records. Make sure that the name is the same in each record, each batch they're looking at. They're comparing.
Correct.
And if they do that, then the whole thing is entirely, all their corrections are incorrect. To me, and it's frustrating, but I'm told that somebody talked to a FamilySearch person, And even after the arbitrators pass decision, somebody goes behind them and looks at what they do. I'm not sure if that's the case.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'll definitely check and see kind of is there a quality check and quality control for arbitrators as well to kind of follow up on them. So
I think back in the results, they just check the feedback.
Mm-hmm. But one of the other things I noticed was I think it's actually the fourth image. Here, if you see it's written, there's things written. There's here the agreement with Planter and Freedmen, R.S. Wall, I believe that is. But you also may want to turn this so you can use the turning image. What else is written underneath it? And it was kind of scanned. It was the start of the second page, but the actual second page. And so you can, move the images back and forth because not all images are aligned the same way. Sometimes you have to rotate the images a little bit just to get a good view of it as well.
Yes.
So, there's some other things, special international characters, they don't really apply to us. You can copy and paste. So, for example, if you have a year that's consistent through all the document and you have 52 names on it, instead of typing 1872 every time, you just copy, and then every time you get to that field, you can paste if you have the year on that agreement as well. So usually Control-V is paste on those computer keyboards. That just gives you a little typing time versus, typing 4 numbers. If you hit 2, at the same time, the Control and the V in that, then it makes it go a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Also, if you can do this, but you have to be careful, is you can display the next image in the window. So it's showing me in the batch what the previous image is and what next image is going to be after it. You don't text from this window. It just gives you a perspective of what things. It does help in some instances, although we are supposed to index on image that we're seeing and information only from that image. A lot of times you can tell that the images were grouped. It might be a cover sheet page and a second page. So the contract is all the same person because you see the similar names on contracts. Now, you can't index things that are not from the image you're looking at, but you use these other images as a reference. So, for example, in this case, I looked up and I thought the name was R.S. Wall, but I can see on here that looks like the same agreement, and it looks more like R.S. Holt. I can say, okay, I'm debating on what I write here or there. Looking at these two, I think it looks like this, and so that's how I'm going to index it. Again, only indexing from this image, but using that second image or the previous image as a reference for you. So do that as well.
And here, Thom, I noticed that in complaints, some they're registers and they go from they start one page and go to the next page, and they say you can index from the next image if it continues there. It's a strange rule, and I had to keep reading it, but it's logical once you understand what it's saying. But there is everything caveat, and never index from when it says don't index this image. Sometimes it tells you to do that in certain circumstances, and I found that to be only in the complaint.
Okay, good. So that's another case of what read the project instructions. Every batch could be different, right? What I've done is I had closed that batch that we were in just a minute ago, and if you see now the progress is now 60%. Actually, I can work on if I want to come back and work on it once I've closed it, I simply click work on it. So I don't have to download it. It takes me right back. The thing about the system is that it automatically saves your work. So everything that I did previously is still in here. It automatically saves you. You don't have to do anything. You can click this save button, which does, save the work to the computer and the server, but it's not necessary. When you close it automatically saves it at a certain point that you were at previously, and it shows you your progress of being 60% complete. On previous batches, one of them's 100% here, and I can either double click it here or click on batch. Either way, I can do that. So let me do that now. And what up our education records. And there are two images in here. This first one is really, you see the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands in the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, and you see observance of the following regulations. You see some more information. The school hours are 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. with hours recess. And I mean, this is very interesting stuff to read. But what I notice on this image is there actually is no data to index. It's image type, which we're on, and it reads down here that if the image is blank and exact, duplicate of previous image, the same batch, or unreadable, select the corresponding option from the list. If the image does not contain education records, so no extractable data image. And it shows an example of a normal and a non-extractable data image. I've worked enough to know that's a superintendent, not a teacher or anything. Also, when I click on this example to see, it takes me to FamilySearch.org's indexing page with this example of an extractable data image. In this case, it was a role that has information but didn't have anybody's name that was not a bureau officer on it. And so for the type, you select non-extractable data image. What happens image is it doesn't get lost totally. It gets flagged by our people on the indexing team for search, flags and looks at it to see why it was listed non-extractable data image. In all cases, they'll remove it, so we do it again, or send it back in another project to be reworked. Some find non-extractable data images in things like we're looking at education records right now, and there may be a labor contract. Now, in the records of the Freedmen's Bureau, a paper got stuck in the middle of another one and not an education record. We need to define all of these in this batch to relate to education so they'll be easily searchable once we've completed the indexing. If something else that's thrown in the middle of it that doesn't match, do extractable data images allows us to take it out of this group of records, these education records, and put it where it needs to go to get properly indexed with the documents that are similar to it. So that's why it's non-extractable data images is okay to put in this case. In this case, the second image was a normal image. It's a table entry. I put information. There were fields that it wanted recorded but were not required, like race, like sex, name, surname, occupation. Again, it wanted but it's not required. And age was a required field. Event month, event day, event year, event city, event county was not a required field. And one of the things you'll know on these required fields is if you look at the heading, you see asterisks next to event year, event city, but not event county. It's because those are required. And like I said, with every required, you must put something in there, either the information it's asking for or a designation that it's blank. So in that case, now I've gone through the whole thing. It says I'm at 100% complete, and I can go ahead and submit the batch. I can submit the batch one of two ways. While I'm in the batch itself, I can submit completed work to the server or show you the button once I've done it. But once you click this mission, it goes through a quality check process. If anything is amiss from what's done, it will ask you to double check and make sure that it's right. It'll give you this notification that the batch has been successfully submitted. And so then your work is done with this batch. It'll take you by default back to your queue, and you'll no longer see that batch there. Now, if you submit a batch and you were only 60% done, for example, one we worked on before, I'll click Submit Batch from here. It will run me, it'll open the batch for me, and it will take me through the quality check. We'll now review the data before submitting. Now, if you see there's a bunch of pink in here, it's because I have not filled out the required information in here. It also has things that it doesn't understand and wants me to double check. In this case, it's in this field. I think it's on this first. It doesn't know that MH, so I accept that as an acceptable value. If here's in multiple places, this accept all will be highlighted for be able to do that, to click on that. But in this, I can click that. But I can't submit the batch until I'm 100% complete. All the required fields have either the required information or it's been designated as blank where I can submit it. So in this, I'm actually going to close and return to start page. I'm going to submit it because I wasn't even ready, wasn't even close to that. You see some of these in red. The reason in red is because once you download a batch, you have 7 days to complete the indexing of that batch. After 7 days, the system will automatically take it out of your queue and give it back to those who are currently indexing, as another batch for somebody else to index. The thing is, we don't want people downloading a lot. I mean, I could download 100 batches if I really wanted to, but if I don't get a chance to work on them, that means that work's not going to be done, and we're not going to be able to submit it, to our database. And so red gives you an idea that, hey, this is coming up, due here pretty soon. Why don't you go ahead and finish up, or you can return the batch, like I said here. So here's return the batch. Just simply means that you don't have enough time for it, it's a little too difficult, or try a different project so you can to other indexers. It is an issue with it. You can select that second one, but that I've really ever had to do that at all. I'm just going to give this to other indexers and take it out of my queue because I'm not going to get to it before the end of the day today when it needs to be completed. This other one I will leave there because it's only 30%, and I actually work on this tonight. Now, another feature, any other comments? Well, actually, let me get some feedback from you before I get feedback from you on what I'm doing so far.
It's great. What you just did, that will explain to people what I've been seeing, and it can throw somebody off. It did me for when I started. Sometimes when you open a batch, you get a little notice saying, other people have worked on this. You have to finish it. And I wonder, that's why, and if you notice, sometimes when you open a batch, you see where somebody has started indexing. But but that little warning when you first open it, for new people, new indexers, it might kind of throw them off track for a second, trying to wonder why is this a warning error, a warning message, or what? So is that message when somebody pulls that same document up to index it.
That's correct, especially because I've done, like you said here, I've done 30%. So I've actually entered in stuff in this labor contract, and the next person who gets it will get my 30%. And so we'll notify the next person who gets it if I return this batch, which I'm going to do right now. I'm an indexers. When someone else opens that batch, they see the data that I've already done, and the little pop-up window that comes when you open that batch that says, review the previous indexer's information to make sure it's correct. And so just keep on working on. So one of the things I'll show you here that not too many people, well, at least I've not heard a lot of people use, but you can. So if you see here, I might still be stuck on this name. I put Madsen there, but how much I, increase the size or what have you, I just can't get it, right? I can actually share this batch. I can give it to another indexer on their computer, and they actually look at exactly what I'm looking at to determine if they can help or provide that. So the way you do that is if you're in a batch, you click on File, on Share Batch.
That's my cell phone ringing. I had to turn it off. Sorry about that.
No problem. See, I hit File, and sorry, let me do this again. File, and then I Share Batch, Give this number to the person who will look at your batch. And so who's on the phone with me, I can copy this and automatically saves it, as a copy or whatever. And then I can post it on Facebook to a friend, or I can send it in an email to a friend, or I can just, write the number down again myself and give it to somebody else. And let's say I'm going to close and return to start page here. I'm the recipient of that shared batch. Well, I can simply go to view shared batch, view what someone has shared with you, and put in that number with Control V, and I click OK, and it actually opens that same batch. So I'm looking at the same batch. Now, I'm in shared mode. Now, what I did was kind of weird because I'm the one who was sharing it for the purpose of the demonstration. But that's all you do. So if by chance you're on our Facebook page and we're trying to help each other out, always include the share batch number before you submit it. You only share that batch before it's submitted. People can actually dig in and look exactly what you're looking at on their system, adjust the color, adjust the contrast in black and white and things like that to look at it. You'll see that there's a lot of redundancy built in here, so I have a download batch here, but I also have a download batch up in the file menu. I come, quick download. I have a share batch that I can do. I have, share batches and other ways to do things on here. So know that you can do them in multiple ways. You can also work offline. So you need to take it, for example, on an airplane like I did. You can actually download batches ahead of time and work offline, and then you can work on the batch while you're on the plane with no internet connection. Once you get a connection, you can go work back online and submit your batches that way. Also, people may not be familiar, but you can set a goal if you'd like to, how many rows you want to index. I've not set a goal in quite a while. That's okay because I'm doing it quite frequently. I can also see my history, my points. That was a system that FamilySearch used to use to reward people who index on a regular basis by accumulating certain points for the batches they did. We don't really use that system anymore. That's gone away, but it's a feature that still exists. Really, when you go on my history, you see the work that you've done. You can see exactly the number of records that you've done this month and total. So I have, as this profile, Discover Freedmen, I've done 125 this month, 341 total. Usually actually use my own personal indexing login and account to book most of my Freedmen stuff, so this is just for show. That's why you're looking at the number going, Thom has hardly done anything. It's because I use this for demo only, and I always submit a batch. Your arbitration result, remember, you can actually, once you've completed the batch yourself, somebody else does it, and then the arbitrator, you can see the level of agreement. Now, 85 is a solid B in school, right? I mean, it's B, almost B plus-ish. That's bad. Some people who 100% agreement, meaning they never made a mistake, everything right. Well, that just doesn't work out all the time, right? So it's not bad at all. Don't worry about it. Keep catching it, correcting it. And if you want to see what your arbitration results were and how you were scored by the arbitrator, you can by clicking on this Batches button. It takes you to kind of the older index system where you use, again, that same username and password. And you can actually see the batches that you have submitted that have been arbitrated. And so here, I've done all these. I have some that are 89% agreement, 93% agreement. Here's 100% agreement on this one. And here's 6. So I see on one of them. That's okay. And I can actually click on it, and I can see that my value on the given name, I did not put Holmes. I did not put manual. I did image type normal. There were some things that were missing from him, and therefore on this record, I got dinged. So here's where my value is, arbitrated value if it's any different, and then any feedback on that example. The cool like about this is here's what I actually did. I can click, and in some cases, I can't do it right now, but in some cases, if I can do it full size, I can actually save this image and keep it from own posterity if I want to remember the batches that I worked on and things like that. I think really cool to be able to look at the batches I've completed and read some of the stories and get in more detail. This is a register of claims, pensions and bounty claims. So they were seeking some kind of redress bureau to get pensions or money or lands or what have you. So turn back to my batch list. That's not important, but I mean, just if you're interested, you can go back to your arbitration results and batches. Here, if the other things, if you just need some help, there's additional links, indexing links here. Here's a resource guide, some tutorials. You can ask a question and go to a knowledge base. You can also see a list of other projects that are available for indexing. You can see, about FamilySearch.org and what we do, because everything we do with these records becomes searchable records on FamilySearch.org. And FamilySearch.org is a place where you can build your own family tree, and you source it with searchable records that we're creating through indexing, and build a family tree and have your own family history online. So that's my whole spiel. I took quite a while to go through it. I go through pretty fast, and I take feedback from the class. With some other things that maybe you would have shown I maybe didn't, or some tips that you have for any of the instructors that are going to be doing this on May 7th?
Each week, with my group, I try to I put a message. Administrators have a way of putting a little message in a little message box. And
Yes.
for interest, I do an indexing tip, and like the one, remember, don't write 1972, write 1872 if that's what it is, because
Mm-hmm.
And then also email everybody to catch even the ones who haven't indexed at all for a while, to keep them in the loop. And there's one thing I was wondering if you could mention. I saw it in the open a batch on the document. If it's I don't time until one day I just clicked on it, and I realized what it does. It tells you
navigation.
Tells you to move around the image a lot easier and smoother than doing the click and drag up top.
Okay, I gotcha. So I learned something new today. I sure did. Yeah, especially if you you're getting this big document and stuff like that, you can move this around. I guess it's a lot easier to do that and get down to the bottom. Right, all these names and things like that. That's great. That's great.
I can email you. I can compile and email you a list of the tips I've come up with. Kind of reminding people. The difference between a record. Some people, and it kind of threw me for a while until I realized. FamilySearch has a terminology called record, and you kind of. Initially think that's a document, but when FamilySearch mentions records, they mean names.
So names attached to a document.
Yes.
Right. Document is one document, right?
Yes.
But it contains multiple names on it, and this document may have, I see 3 at the bottom, and then I've seen a couple up here at the top. The document may contain 5 records. You have names associated with this document. So that's how we use the term record. Like you said, a lot of just say record is, okay, this is the image. No, the record is not the image. The record is the name and the image. And so you may have one image that has 12, 52 records on it, right? You basically duplicate it for every person. If you think about it that way, every name duplicates that document, meaning there's, 56, if there's 56 names on it, there's 56 ways to see this document, 56 records associated with this document, because you could find it through the different names of the individuals on that document.
Right.
So that's what a record is.
Yeah. One question, obviously you and I know that it takes a while to kind of go through this thing all the way. On the Index-A-Thon day, maybe you can tell me what happened last Saturday. You do that only. You can do that for so long and so often, depending on how many people come in at a time. And so I guess you just kind of play by ear and
yeah. What I do is I try and be as brief as possible and show them the basic features, and I want to get people into it. So I don't want to be there for an hour lecturing and not having a chance to act on what I'm telling them at all. So I try and condense my presentation to 25 to 30 minutes. And then I already know in my head what I didn't cover necessarily when I set things up.
Yeah.
And what I do is I let people get started, and then I'll stop them in the middle of it. So I'll say, Jet had this question, and I'm going to show you all how to do this. Maybe it's image navigation, or, here's where the handwriting helps are. And they're like, oh, great, I know where the handwriting. So I kind of feed them a few extra things as going along to kind of keep them engaged. Now, at the Index-A-Thon we did last week, we did a 25-minute kind of opening for everybody that was there. And then as more people trickled in, it was like one or two of us would kind of take them to the side. And the people we dealt with had actually indexed before. They just hadn't been, familiar with the indexing program in a while, or knew anything about the Freedmen's Bureau records themselves. And so we were able to kind of get them going one-on-one rather quickly. But I usually say, if you can get one, can manage at max probably 4 people to help and be there to support. So that's how we kind of approached it, was as saying, okay, now that person got added to me. I sat down with them for 10 minutes and went through it, and they got it, right? And then so I left them alone, but if they had questions, they come back to me. And inherently somebody would come 30 minutes later. We did sessions at 10 and 1 because it was from 10 to 4. So we had a 10 o'clock kickoff and a 1 o'clock kickoff because we got new people that came right after lunch. And anybody that came after that, we had somebody show up at 2:30. That's just, okay, 2:30, just sit down with this person or whatever and work with them.
Yeah. Oh, I have one more question. Somebody asked me, and it was in the back of my mind. Index-A-Thon, we set a goal of 5 names. I just picked that out of the air. And I was wondering how does FamilySearch keep track of what's done in Index-A-Thon, because there's some people there at the Index-A-Thon site, but where they are, they're gonna stop and index a batch or two. Somebody in California, somebody in Montana, somebody in Florida. And how will our Index-A-Thon? We know how many names, names or records indexed for that day during that Index-A-Thon. Will families be able to keep track of all of that?
We'll be able to do. One way is, you have everybody in your group, right? So you can run your own report as a group administrator the day before, and then you run your report after. Tell you how many worked on that day. From FamilySearch, we're looking kind of globally at a specific time. We're going to start at midnight, and we'll go from midnight on Friday night or Saturday morning, basically, till midnight on Saturday night, and then we'll see how many did Freedmen projects at all. Necessarily broken down by each individual chapter, but we can run a chapter report for just what happened that day and start. Let me pause before I say that. I'm pretty sure we can do that for that day. We can look at all that's been done for that day and break it down by each of the chapters, so we'll know what people have done. And then also individuals can keep track of what they've done as well. So, for example, on my history, on the record, said it again, before I start, that I was at 125 for the month. or whenever May, it'll turn over a new month or what have you. And so able to say, okay, I started at 125 and today I'm now at 162. So that means I did 37 records today, right?
Yeah.
That's, and then you can kind of keep track yourself or what have you. No good way. It's simply, nothing that we can provide real-time statistics. And, people aren't tied to a group. Sometimes, we miss them that way. We just do the best we can. I mean, we'll get a good, accurate count by doing the timestamp from, FamilySearch overall, but breaking it down for each of the chapters. One, the chapter administrator can do that by running the reports, or each individual can kind of, write down what they did when they look at their history and the records submitted.
Yeah, I guess I kind of figured out I would be able to see everybody who's affiliated with us. But say, for instance, somebody who's affiliated with someplace in North Carolina,
Hampton Roads, something like that, or whatever. Right.
I'll be able to track them, but the fact that they index something is great for the whole for everybody. But
right.
But that's fine. I guess that's my question, but there's no way I can find that out. But
the way that you'll be able to see what Hampton Roads or what Central Virginia or what Nowhere chapter or Family Quest Philadelphia chapter did, you won't know that. I'll run the report afterwards, and our team knows, and we're getting ready for it. So by Monday, we'll have that report, and we'll send it to AAHGS and let everybody know what happened over the weekend and our results from the Index-A-Thon.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So first report on Monday morning. And you know what everybody's going to be doing. Everybody be going to the Discover Freedmen page to see where this little ticker has gone. Are we now at 89% or what have you? So
yeah,
we really need.
I sent an email and said if you haven't indexed yet, or if you're indexing just a few, you better get started because you don't want to miss out, because we're at that time 70%. Good.
And just so you're aware, you made a statement, and I want to make sure that people understand. So what we have here is part of our agreement with the Smithsonian. So the 75% represent all the documents that we scoped to index to give to the Smithsonian at the opening of their museum in September. But that does not include all Freedmen Bureau content. For example, the non-extractable data images that we pulled out. We've gone and looked at other correspondence between Bureau officers that ended up containing labor contracts and property records that we didn't already put in this initial scope or initial project. So we pulled those additional ones out because when we looked at them originally, it was just all correspondence between field offices and really have anything of genealogical value. Well, we've gone back through everything and found more that have genealogical value, but they're not necessarily what we have to give to the Smithsonian by the time they open. So we'll complete this by June 19th. There will be additional Freedmen's Bureau content to do after that time as well. And people want to continue to have events, we encourage them to do that. The big push was to get the bulk or majority of it, let's say 95% of it, done in this time frame with this project, but there may be a 5 or 10 or 15% left over that can continue to do through the years and continue to add to that same database.
That's good.
So I want to let you know. So it doesn't end here, but what we should end here, and I was talking to someone in Richmond late last night. Actually, not talking. We were emailing back and forth. And he said what's been interesting is how they've been able to engage so many different organizations that have not been involved in family history to participate in this project. And they've got some big things that they've got planned for August and into September and things like that. And I encourage them to continue to do that, absolutely. But what be the breakthrough and what we're doing this for is to allow people to discover the names that are in the records. Discover Freedmen is what we're calling this project, because after let's take people who are interested in family history or want to learn more through the experience of actually looking in the records and find their own families. And so maybe you can adjust your events to not be so much about indexing, although the indexable content, you can actually change now and focus more on finding the people and discovering the family records that exist now that we've indexing the majority of them and they're in the database ready to be found. Just food for thought as you continue to engage different organizations. So, and that was for everybody, just for you. But I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. I think at a good place now where we can end. I'll stop my recording as well. And anybody who has any questions, obviously, can reach out to me, Thom at FamilySearch.org. We'll post this. This is quite a long one, so I'm going to see how long it takes to download and upload and be able to share. But I hope to share this with people in the next day or so as they get ready for the Index-A-Thon on May 7th.
Yeah, I'll email